Hello, I'm Luke, and I'm going to give an overview on why one might want to take a day in silence, a day of cutting off all the distractions in life, and why one might want to follow this renewal retreat guidelines. So, what follows are some videos and notes to help guide someone on a one-day personal silent retreat, which could certainly be extended to multiple days. In our Western lives, it can sometimes be difficult to find the space for even one day. And as it's said in about meditation, that one should meditate for 30 minutes a day, and that if you don't have time to meditate for 30 minutes a day, you should meditate for an hour a day. So we lead lives of constant distractions. We lead lives where we have messages coming at us from all angles. We have mail coming. We have people calling us, texting us, multiple social media messages coming through on different platforms. So we have a very distracted world, and as a result, we have very distracted minds as Westerners. And so it can be very healing, and important, and helpful to simply take a break from these distractions. We can do this in multiple ways. We can go on hikes in the woods. So during this retreat, if you choose to give this gift to yourself, you'll have to create a container for yourself. A container where if you're sharing a house with people, people know that you're in silence this day. In the community I live in, we all keep what's called noble silence, mauna, from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. every day, so that if we're passing each other at 7:30 in the morning, we don't engage, not because we don't care about each other, but because we care so much. We know that first we have to really fill up our own cup before we're able to do much else in the world. So I want to start with a poem from Rumi. I often do this, starting with Rumi poem. The Only Obligation. Today, a new madness is trying to set us free, tearing open our sacks. Some nameless Bedouin has bought Joseph again for 18 coins. A narcissist sprouts through the ground. Our souls, having pastured all night on jasmine, leap up for the dawn. The world is new, and you have been chosen to say this poem, because you are the one with the love bites on you. Your love has brought us to this silence, where the only obligation is to walk slowly through a meadow and look. So your only obligation in this retreat is to make a commitment to carry it through, even when it's difficult. Especially in the beginning when we meditate, we can sit our body in the right place, but so many distractions will come up in the mind because our mind simply has not been conditioned to deal with the conditions of silence. So we often find that even when we set our physical conditions to be conducive, our mind ends up being the biggest distraction. It's said in the Buddhist tradition that it's much easier to tame a wild lion, than your own mind. The mind makes a great servant, but a horrible master, right? Because it can really get carried away. We find that this endless train of thoughts that's going on in most of our minds, like basically all the time, that when we actually try to still it, it keeps going. So the internal monologue that we often think of as us even, seems to have a mind. Our mind has a mind of its own. And on this path, there can certainly be, on the meditative path, moments of rapture, these really peak states, but mostly it's just a graduated path. So we take one step at a time, one breath at a time, and our only ongoing work is to simply bring ourselves back to the present moment. And sometimes it can feel very frustrating, but like training a puppy to walk on a leash. We don't want to be so aggressive with our mind. We don't want to bring violence or anything like this in our mental space, but we just make that little tug and again the mind will run away, as the puppy will run away. And in our lives, we can often be unsure of what's really going on because we're constantly being distracted by influences from without. So I think in living an authentic, sincere, wholesome life, it requires us to first get on top of what's going on in our mind, getting to know ourselves maybe in a new way. And while it can be hard work, the fruits of it are so worthwhile. They're so worth doing the work for. Wendell Berry writes in a poem, "Because we have not made our lives to fit our places, the forests are ruined, the fields eroded, streams polluted, the mountains overturned." So, a day of silence, whether you choose to do this retreat or not, whether you choose to do the practices that are put forth in this retreat, I really encourage just taking a day when you can, maybe once a month, maybe once a week, even once a year, if that's the only time you can, to turn everything off, turn off the internet, to not run to a book to read or a TV show to watch, to quiet the distractions, to get to know yourself on a deeper level. This is not affiliated with any religion or belief system. Certainly there'll be certain practices that come from traditions, but simply getting to know the mind and getting on top of the matter rather than being trammeled by our thoughts is useful for any tradition. In any prayer tradition, if you have an undisturbed mind, how will you really achieve that calm space for where our deepest prayers, our deepest aspirations of the heart come through? So one of the things we also let go of, in the Buddhist tradition, it's a lot about letting go of what we're grasping on or letting go of what we're adverse to. We try to let go of expectations. So we don't try to endeavor to bring any particular state about. We'll learn in subsequent lectures that it's not about getting to that calm, blissful state meditation, but it's about being okay with whatever state comes through. So if that we're extremely agitated, we just notice that, and we learn to be more okay with that rather than trying to repress feelings or run from them. We learn to just sit with what is, whatever it is. That the Buddha was born about 2,500 years ago in India, where there was a lot of Sri Ramanas. They were called the seekers or the strivers. And many were trying to get to the nature of things. They were trying to figure out what is going on. Why are we here? What is this life? And what they really learned is it's not what you know or have, but how you live that counts. As the Buddha said, these philosophical conversations don't lead to edification. So in the West, we've been trying to figure out at the level of the mind, right, through philosophy, through logic, things. But they say Western philosophy ends where Eastern philosophy begins, or Eastern philosophy begins where Western philosophy ends. Because they'll say, if you really want to get to the deepest truths about reality, you have to actually set aside the mind and get beneath that. So what are these practices and how do they come to us? So in this retreat, we'll be doing a Tibetan yoga, Dorje yoga. That'll be more explained in the video for that. And then we'll also do another Tibetan form of yoga. So we're often trying to solve things at the level of the mind in the West, which can be very useful. Talk therapy is very useful. But we exist also at the level of the body. So it also requires us, sometimes we hold emotions in the body, we hold pain in there. So eating healthy, putting good things into our body, and then giving the body the movement it requires. Dorje yoga that we'll be doing is a practice developed by the Tibetans for meditators. So it was developed to help deal with some of the physical strains of seated meditation, which in the beginning can be difficult, just to sit still and breathe. And we should see that as a problem. If we can't sit still for 15, 30, 20 minutes and just be with ourselves, be with our breath, that should be seen as an issue that we should endeavor to solve. As in the physical world, we can often see things much better from a distance. At the base of a mountain, we won't really know what a mountain looks like. But further away, we can see the mountain in its completeness much better. Same with our lives. Sometimes when we're caught in our routines, caught in our distractions, it's much more difficult to see our lives. So by taking a day of silence, we can see how we're living in a crisper view. We can see what's serving us and what isn't, and then we have the ability to make choices. And so I encourage you to set a deep intention for this retreat. What is it you want to bring about? And maybe even letting go of a specific thing. Because setting deep intentions is not about what we want to happen. We release control. There's so little we can actually control. But what we can control is how we show up for the things that do happen. So perhaps setting general things like, may I get closer to living my highest purpose and potential. These are things that allow us to start with what's called beginner's mind. So we sort of suspend everything, all beliefs as it's been. You're not going to be asked to take any, as I said, belief on board, but to really maybe discard some conditionings that we've acquired along the way in order to really find the truth as it rests within us. And Shantideva has a really great reading on this. He writes, "Spirituality is about waking up, reaching in, finding and identifying the things that are unconscious within you, things you don't want to see or deal with. If you want to come even close to enlightenment, you don't get to hide from anything. You have to have that unquenchable thirst for truth and love, and you will look into anything in order to bring truth to it, in order to bring non-separation to it. There's no hiding. No form of self-deception will work. All along the way, it requires this willingness to access your experience of where you are and what's happening, and to make the necessary adjustments. This is one thing that no spiritual teacher can give their students. They can't give this kind of desire, the desire for the truth and nothing but the truth, all the way through, come what may. You either have it, or you find it, or you don't. You can't be in any kind of wish fulfillment strategy with your enlightenment. If we really want to live an awakened life, we've got to approach it in a pragmatic way. What's working? What's not working? One of the illusions we let go of is just sitting around hoping and dreaming. This is a kind of resistance. Just open your eyes and open your heart and encounter whatever is there. See what's under it, and see what's under that, and see what's under that until you see it all the way through. If you have that as a high value, then as far as enlightenment is concerned, you have the necessary and most important ingredient. So you may uncover in the course of this dive, this renewal retreat, some things in yourself that maybe you don't want to see. And it will be important to just be very compassionate with yourself. It may be you'll have to adopt the schedule to work with your life. Maybe you have kids that will be coming home from school. So it's important to not think that by taking a piece of the puzzle, you'll get the package that's being put forth. So there's a lot of thought that goes into this, and I'm simply a spokesperson for some very ancient traditions that have worked out for many thousands of people over thousands of years. So I'm certainly also just a serious practitioner on this path myself, sharing from the heart to your heart what has been very useful in my own life. So That's a little of an overview of what you can expect, and thank you for taking this dive.